From 11 Alive News, Up Late starts now.
Right now on Up Late, Georgia is still struggling to roll out COVID vaccines. This as some teachers try to push back in-person learning a little bit longer. Plus,
it was so distasteful and so upsetting and so horrific.
Hackers take aim at a popular religious service bringing together Christians and Jews in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
And it looks like we could see another dusting of snow in the North Georgia mountains. When you can expect to see those flurries fly again.
But first tonight, we're monitoring the potential for threats and protests across the country and here in Georgia, leading up to President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on Wednesday. Here are the latest updates. Today, a possible threat already stopped in Washington. Police say a man tried to enter a secure area near the inauguration stage in a pickup truck with unauthorized credentials. Police found a loaded gun and 500 rounds of ammunition. The man was arrested and charged. Meanwhile, some states like Texas and Ohio have chosen to close their Capitol grounds. This comes after the FBI issued a warning earlier this week that armed protests are being planned in all 50 state capitals. Other states have tightened security significantly, including right here in Atlanta. Extra fencing and barriers have been added around the Capitol building as agencies across the metro remain on high alert. Law enforcement throughout the state are teaming up to monitor any and all potential threats. We've been checking in with all the major agencies today. 11 Alive's Shanu Her has the latest.
The GBI, the FBI, and GSP say they don't know of any specific threats to the Capitol or any government buildings, but they're continuing to monitor the situation. On Saturday, security at the Georgia State Capitol in downtown Atlanta remained tight, from the fencing to law enforcement presence protecting the building. A similar situation at other state capitals around the country, like Minnesota, upping security to Texas, which shut down the Capitol. Just about a mile away from Georgia's Capitol, the CNN Center taking the same precaution and boarding up its doors and windows. Nearby Georgia State University's police department also in touch with partnering agencies to protect students. The GBI's director, Vic Reynolds, told us earlier this week the agency is helping feed intelligence to officers on the street, and he's confident in its plan.
I'll tell you that I feel comfortable about the security plan now, but we're certainly diligent and have our eyes open.
FBI Atlanta says it's set up a command post through the inauguration, promising to share information based on tips from the public and, quote, have deployed personnel, including special agents, bomb technicians, evidence response teams, tactical teams, and intelligence analysts to support investigations. The Georgia National Guard says it has not been asked to increase security at locations they've been protecting, such as the governor's mansion and the Capitol. But, quote, the Georgia National Guard will be ready if our governor calls us to provide additional capabilities our professional law enforcement teammates need. APD says it's prepared to respond quickly if needed. It's canceled some regular days off and added 12-hour shifts.
New tonight, we've learned the mother of a Georgia man has also been arrested in connection with the riot at the U.S. Capitol. Court documents allege Lisa Eisenhart traveled to D.C. with her son, Eric Monschel. She's charged with conspiracy, disobeying civil orders, and entering a restricted building. Police say Eisenhart and her son were standing near a mob that attacked officers guarding the Senate chambers. The documents also state the mother and son had flex cuffs in their hands and later entered the Senate chambers. Eric Monschel was arrested Sunday in Nashville after being photographed in full tactical gear, carrying zip ties through the chamber. Monschel had a criminal record in Fulton and DeKalb counties and previously lived in Dunwoody. And we're learning new details tonight about a Georgia woman who died during the January 6th attack at the U.S. Capitol. The New York Times says they obtained video that shows 34-year-old Susan Boyland being trampled in a stampede of rioters. In the video, the Times says you can see the Kennesaw woman collapsing after becoming trapped as the mob stormed the west entrance. They say the video shows two men performing CPR on her. The Metropolitan Police report says officers arrived to find two Capitol Police officers performing CPR, but they would not confirm if Boyland was the woman in the video. Her official cause of death has not yet been released. And now to some breaking developments coming out of President Trump's controversial phone call to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. The Secretary's Elections Division is currently investigating the January 2nd phone call in which Trump pressed Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes in his favor. 11 Alive has now confirmed election board member David Worley plans to make a motion to send that investigation to Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. Worley plans to make that motion at the next meeting on February 10th. And the days following that call, Willis said in a stated quote, "Anyone who commits a felony violation of Georgia law in my jurisdiction will be held accountable." And new tonight, one of Atlanta's biggest temples says their annual joint MLK service was the target of a cyber attack. The temple and Ebenezer Baptist Church held the 36th annual MLK Jr. Shabbat service virtually last night. But temple leaders say hackers were able to block access to the temple's website, and in doing so, they also blocked access to every other synagogue client website across the country. They were not able to get the site up and running again until an hour into the service. In an exclusive interview with 11 Alive's Bill Liss, temple leaders told us they believe this was an anti-Semitic and racist act.
Kent, as a former United States attorney, what would you think would be the root cause of why this happened and what the goal was of this particular group, whoever they might have been?
One thing I know as a former U.S. attorney is not to rush to judgment, but you do take the facts as you see them. And so all I can do is speculate. And it appears that somebody was trying to interfere with this service because of racism or anti-Semitism or both, knowing that the temple and Ebenezer Baptist Church had a service together. Reverend Warnock was speaking. So that's, it's disturbing, but we also, we made sure that we had other channels available too.
It was an opportunity really for unity. So it's ironic that these deranged individuals thought they could disrupt that. The second irony is, of course, more and more people are now watching the service than ever before. So these hateful people did not win the day.
The FBI says they are investigating but have not confirmed a motive for the cyber attack. Also new tonight, a Georgia student and her boyfriend have now been released from prison in the Cayman Islands. That's according to the Cayman Compass newspaper. 18-year-old Skylar Mack and her boyfriend were sentenced to 4 months after violating the Cayman Islands COVID-19 guidelines back in November. Weeks later, their sentence was reduced in half after pleading with the magistrate. The Cayman Compass reports Mack returned to the United States yesterday. And turning now to the fight against COVID-19, Georgia is still lagging behind other states when it comes to administering the vaccine. Starting today, some chain pharmacies will now be able to vaccinate people who are eligible. That's a move health officials hope will speed up vaccinations in the state. But as Paula Suro explains, it's still challenging for those who are eligible to actually get the shot.
I spoke to Jim Mallory, one of the first seniors in Georgia to receive the COVID-19 vaccine from a Publix pharmacy. He knows he's one of the fortunate ones because appointments right now are hard to come by.
I feel lucky. I feel very lucky that I got it. And, I hope it works. I've got my appointment set up for 4 weeks.
Publix, Kroger, and Ingles are all offering the vaccine for free, but demand is high. We tried scheduling an appointment ourselves. Publix's website already says all appointments have been claimed. A similar story on Kroger's site, which shows no available time slots.
I wish more people could do this. Hopefully they can soon.
Right now, according to the CDC, Georgia is the second slowest in the U.S. when it comes to administering vaccines, with less than 23% of available vaccines administered. COVID-19 expert and Augusta University professor Dr. David Blake says there are many reasons other states like West Virginia, which has administered about 65% of its available doses, are doing better. West Virginia started vaccinating people in long-term care facilities a week before other states had, choosing speed over federal guidelines and also partnered with local pharmacies.
Now, West Virginia has a statewide infrastructure. They're coordinating from the top. They have all of their pharmacies on board. And so if you're a West Virginia resident, you contact the state, you fill out a form, they tell you which pharmacy to go to. The pharmacy has an appointment for you.
Now, it's also important to note that West Virginia does have a smaller population than Georgia. And while in our state, pharmacies now offer some hope, Dr. Blake says the state should be looking at West Virginia as an example on how to set up appointments for residents. Instead, the current scheduling system, he says, makes it a challenge for those who are eligible to get their shots.
They're going to send vaccines to pharmacies like Publix, and then you're going to have to coordinate your appointments with that Publix. So it's going to be very hit and miss with respect to each pharmacy and their availability. You're going to need to make multiple calls if you want to get your vaccine in earlier.
Publix recommends checking in every morning at 6 a.m. for available time slots to get the vaccine. Mallory says that's the time he woke up to set up his appointment.
Return to in-person learning or remain virtual. That's a tough decision many metro school districts are facing on a weekly basis as Georgia's COVID numbers continue to rise. Today, dozens of Atlanta public schools teachers held a socially distant protest in response to the district's decision to return to in-person learning starting January 25th. This will be the first time APS students will be back in the classroom since last spring. The district says there will be temperature checks and students will be required to wear masks. Our coronavirus data team has been tracking the case trends in Fulton County. When we looked at school-age children from the ages of 5 to 17, the case rate has gone up 671% since the start of the fall semester. In adults, we saw a 658% increase. In Cobb County, schools decided to go virtual next week after a spike in cases there. The case rate in school-age children in Cobb has also gone up a whopping 1,100% since fall. And in adults, the rate remains up more than 560%.
After a cold and blustery Saturday, your 11 Alive Storm trackers did a great job capturing the sunset. We had Tommy Meyer looking out over Georgia Tech and Mike Sussman. He was talking about how cold it was. It was 40 degrees, but with the breeze, it felt much colder than that. So coming up, how low the temperatures will go tomorrow and when you might see some snow, another dusting in the North Georgia mountains.